What's going on, everybody? TripleCrown24 back today, and I wanted to share what is a very special pickup for me with all of you. In terms of the amount I've had to put into this purchase, whether it be cash or trade value of cards, this card is only second to the Juan Soto X-Fractor that I think is probably actually right around 2 years ago that I picked that up at the Dallas Card Show. But it's what you see on screen. It's a Julio Rodriguez 2022 Topps Dynasty RPA. It's numbered to 10. Now, there are 6 different poses for Julio Rodriguez in Dynasty, so technically speaking, there's 60 of these out there, but only 10 with this specific image. I do like this image, probably in my top 2 or 3 among the 6 out there, but it's one of those things where I wasn't going to discriminate against any of the poses. It's beggars can't be choosers type of thing, because these are surprisingly difficult to find. You think that being 60 of them out there, something that's out of 60 in this day and age, isn't all that impressive. Well, these are, they're not plentiful. Let me tell you that. They're not easy to acquire because there's just not very many of them available for sale. And how this came about, I'll tell you, is that at the end of last year, I kind of made a resolution to myself to look into some bigger cards in 2024 and take some more risks. Most of you who have followed me know that I'm not a huge risk taker, and even in my own personal collection, whether that be when I was super collecting Miggy or now building my sets, is that I don't really go after these really large cards, especially of current players, because I don't want to assume the risk. And that is kind of something that I've held true in my dealer side of things as well, where $500 is usually the most I'm willing to go on one single card. Anything beyond that, have I dabbled in it before? Absolutely. And I've taken a lot of very calculated chances then, but it was times where it was almost like, oh, okay, this is a price too good to pass up type of scenario. Whereas this one I'm a lot more unsure of. And again, this is something that I wanted to challenge myself to do, because I would say this is one of my biggest weak points as a dealer, is not trying to go after some of these cards when there are opportunities that present themselves. So when I made my list of cards that I wanted to go after, it was about 8 to 10. It was a mental list of things that, all right, if I see one of these and it's priced reasonably, I need to go after it. And last week, while I was taking a nap, I woke up to this flurry of texts and calls from my friend Justin. He was on vacation down in Florida, and when I called him back, he told me not to worry because he got it. He was at a shop down there and saw this card that you see on screen and picked it up. And we talked about it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take it for that price. And here it is, it's mine now. Some eagle eye observers might notice the patch is a little weird. It is a departure from what you would normally see for a Mariners jersey with the black, silver, and white. And I'll have to give massive kudos to my friend Chad, who did the detective work on this and discovered that this is a Negro Leagues jersey worn by the Seattle Mariners. And if you want to put 2 and 2 together, it does say this is game used, as is the case with Dynasty. Well, they only wore that specific jersey one time during J-Rod's rookie season in 2022. It was on June 17th against the Angels. They crushed them. And J-Rod had 3 hits in that game. Assuming that this patch is from that game, that's kind of a nice little bonus to the card, I would say. But there's a lot of things that appeal to me about this. And part of it is I was kind of thinking about this. I've always been a big fan of Dynasty. But what is considered the quote-unquote true RPA in baseball? It's a term that you probably hear more and more in the hobby. Quote-unquote true RPA, right? For football and basketball, it is pretty straightforward, I would say. Most people will tell you it's national treasures, and I don't think that is too widely debated. Hockey, it's also pretty straightforward. The cup put out by Upper Deck is your answer there. That's the one if you're only going to go after one RPA. Now in baseball, I don't know if there is a definitive answer, no pun intended, since definitive is a product, I guess you could argue, is like that. But I think that no product that Topps put out is more closely associated with a patch auto, including patch autos of the top rookies each year in their class, than Dynasty. And if you asked, most people would probably defer to this product as what they would consider the, again, true RPA. And because of that, I've been kind of thinking about, okay, who are some of the top stars in the game who are, their rookie year fell into the dynasty era. And you want to look at the 2018 class. You have Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna Jr. They're not really easy to find, and the ones that are out there are priced pretty high for obvious reasons. And if you look at the sales history on them, again, pretty penny to buy those cards. And I got to thinking to myself, okay, if those ones are off the table, what's the next best thing? Is there a potential budding superstar who I could buy now and get in at what is probably one of my best opportunities to get in? And I thought of J-Rod. And it kind of goes into this phenomena of a sophomore slump. Pretty ironic that I'm talking about this because there was a video that was put out earlier this week by Bench Clear. It was a hobby think tank. And I'll give kudos to Danny and Mike on this one, is that they kind of talked about this towards the end of the episode where guys after their second season, the hype dies down. It kind of goes in cycles. When someone's first Bowman comes out, a lot of people talk about it, and then the next wave of prospects come in. But then they get called up and they become a rookie, and there's hype again. And then after that, the hype dies down again. And really after those two cycles, it's going to weed out a lot of the big hyped names that were once prospects and then, again, top rookies. And only the cream of the crop, if you will, really rises after that. A lot of guys are going to kind of fade out. They'll be good players, but they won't really be hobby good players, if that makes sense, where there's not going to be a lot of interested collectors for them, or collectors who are willing to put significant money into their cards. Let's frame it that way. Now, J-Rod is kind of one of those guys where he is a golden child, if you will, of the hobby. When his first Bowman came out in 2019, he was immediately identified as one of the top names. And in 2022, when it was him, Witt, Torkelson, another guy who we won't talk about, he was kind of labeled as one of the guys then. And since then, he's had a pretty good start to his career. He's on a team that has supported some very popular hobby names, and Ken Griffey Jr. and Ichiro. And if he were to even sniff the legacy of those two guys, I would say that J-Rod would have a pretty good career. I think most would agree with that if you're even in the shadow of Ichiro or Griffey. But what's different between those guys and J-Rod is that they don't have dynasty RPAs, so it's kind of a weird comparison to make. We're in a different era from when those guys debuted back in the day. And I kind of thought that now, after his second season, this so-called sophomore slump in the hobby would be the opportune time to go after this card. It was kind of a now or never type of thing. And I've tried on several different cards. One of the ones that I had identified that I had told you guys about was the Ronald Acuna Jr. 2018 Heritage Black Refractor. I tried to buy it at Culture Collision. You saw how that goes. It didn't go over so well for me. But at that show, I kind of got some more encouragement. I have to give a shout out to my friend Eric, those back pages. I know, shout outs galore today, right? But we had kind of talked about it. And because I had been selling through things so well in the past, I don't know, number of months now, and that trend has still continued to this day, he kind of encouraged me to go after something that you might have to pay a little strong on. And that was the case for this Julio Rodriguez. I paid above the last few sales to acquire it. And it's not because I think the patch is cool, being that it is a more unique jersey, but it's not one of those patches where you go, oh my gosh, that's a crazy patch like you see sometimes in Dynasty. It's not like a logo or anything or a laundry tag. But he encouraged me then, if I see something, to go after it, and this was that something. This was something that I identified. And I've been talking to him about it for quite some time. He will vouch for me in that regard. But I'm incredibly pumped to go after this, and I'm proud of myself for also going after it because, again, I had to pay above the last few sales. And sometimes on cards like this, you have to do that because realistically, who is going to sell this at 80% of the last sale? Nobody. Every time I go to a show, especially major shows where you're more likely to see cards like this, they are never priced in that way. And if they are, you probably should grab it then, because you will not see it at that price again, right? If you are looking for a specific vintage card at the National, every PSA 4 is the nicest 4 you've ever seen of that particular card, right? Or at least they're priced that way. It's kind of the same thing on cards like this, where it's a cornerstone card for any Julio Rodriguez collector out there, or for anyone who wants a nice high-end J-Rod card. I would say it's up there with some of the Topps Chrome stuff, again, no pun intended, or some of the Bowman First stuff out there. This is on par with that. Maybe a level below a First Moment, but you get my gist. It is one of those blue blood type of cards in the baseball hobby, at least for ultra-modern cards. And that's why I identified it as something I want to go after. What is my exit strategy on this? I have an idea of when I will move off of it and what price point that would be at. Is it going to be less than what I paid for it? No. Is it a card that I am perfectly content with holding until the end of time? Yes, it is. Because I haven't got to go after something like this in a while. And look, again, I'm proud of myself for taking this risk. And that's part of why I wanted to share this with you, is because I'm very excited about it. I'm also nervous because, again, I don't usually take risks like this on one single card. But I felt that this was a good opportunity. And in the few times that I have done it in the past, my intuition usually served me correct, where the worst case scenario was I broke even on those cards. And they come to my head right away, when I think about them. And hopefully this is one that I'm going to look back on fond memories whenever the time to depart with it comes. But for now, I'm going to enjoy it because, again, I really do love the card. It was one of those that I had my eye on, and the journey is kind of complete in terms of hunting it down. But the next part of the story is still to be written. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed my little commentary on this pickup here. I'll be sure to see you next week with some more vlogs and a new podcast episode. Take care, stay safe, be kind.